It's 9 o'clock. We can start, please. Deborah, roll call.
Absolutely. Ring,
Here.
Lau,
Here.
Byram,
Here.
Castillo,
Here.
Singh,
Here.
Star. I don't see her online. Parking Jurassic, Hurt.
Here.
Okay. The last meeting, which was December 3rd, the minutes. Anyone have any comments about them? Seeing none, mark them so approved, please. Resident forum, Deborah, anyone?
There are no in-person forum speakers. I'm looking online. No one has their hands raised. Looking, Kim Star is here.
Okay.
No, that concludes the
Okay,
residents
great,
forum.
thank you. Chair report, the one announcement I have is I will not be at the February meeting. I'll be in Mexico with the golf trip. Alice will run that meeting for us.
So we're gonna have the meeting down there.
That's fine. I won't be there. I won't be at the meeting.
The
but I'll
golf
be there.
player is funding that.
Jeff, any comments?
So the good news to start the year is that we have completed our insurance placements with Gallagher for 2025 renewals. And the premiums for all of our combined lines came in at 10.2% under 2024 premiums. And even better, it is a decrease significantly over budgets. We should see a pretty healthy variance of a little over 6 million divided between the mutuals and the trust. Based on budgets, mutuals budgeted between 18 and 20% increase in rates, and we experienced a 11% decrease. So we reviewed that with the President's Forum, and we'll be discussing that in more detail with Gallagher present at the board meeting on Thursday.
Jeff?
Good placements.
Yeah, a question. So it's nice to see the premium decrease. What about coverage? Are we maintaining the same or better?
So this is based on pretty much the same level of coverage. Our total coverage went up slightly, but the valuation also went up. So our valuation is 2.8 billion and our coverage is 1.26, our coverage limits. We are still, far from meeting the requirements of 100% coverage. So this doesn't make the situation with lenders and more traditional mortgage any better, but it at least provides our same level of coverage at better rates.
So Jeff, this is really good news, by the way. So what led to the decline?
A lot of improvements in the markets, some stabilization, the rates, the reinsurers and so forth are collecting significantly more premium, more incentives for them to invest and expand capacity in the market. There's still, significant losses according to Gallagher. The LA fires and those losses are more going to hit the private homeowner market as opposed to the reinsurer. And the detail he gave, according to the way our tower is constructed, and especially our initial 5 million layer, we have some insulation from those. So if one insurer really gets hit and pulls out, we have so many insurers on different levels within our tower that we're able to absorb that and replace that. So a lot of factors.
In other words, this could be a one-time thing. Who knows what it's gonna be next year? So don't spend it all.
Just a quick question, Jeff. Do you think that when you got all the insurance companies here to do an actual physical online tour of the place, that helped them see? Because I know that they used to just look at Google Maps and just say, okay, here's the insurance.
Yeah, I think the more we can make the underwriters familiar with our property, aware of everything that we're doing, hardening projects and the Firewise, all of that, it may not reduce the rates, but when they have capacity constraints and they're choosing between where to invest their money, and we could show that we are a solid investment, I think that helps in that. But the main thing it helps with, not necessarily the tours, but the more we can do to prevent any type of loss in that 5 million layer, and that's the house fires, the smaller losses, our investment in that additional 5 million layer, that 85% comes back to the community, continues to grow. So all of those projects that we're doing or that the mutuals are undertaking really are valuable in helping those $2 million losses. We want to keep those out.
Was our contract completed before the LA fire?
Our placement was complete before the LA fires, yes.
Okay.
Anything else?
That was my question.
Okay, anything else? Okay.
I have a question
Yeah.
then. Is that $5 million layer, is that an annual amount or the total amount for the period of time?
So the retained risk layers, the first 5 million, it is a 6-year contract. We are entering year 3 and the rates are fixed for the duration of that, which is another good thing.
We got 2 more years to go.
Yeah, after this one, we'll have 3 more years to go.
Okay,
But it's actually isn't it a $10 million coverage?
$5 million.
It's a $5 million per occurrence, and then 10 million
Yeah, 10
aggregate, I
million.
believe.
we may lose power in 15 minutes, so
That's good. I love
we'll try
that.
to move along, but we may not either, so. Financials,
Yeah, so I think hopefully everyone had a chance to read the kind of memo I attached on the financials. And, I think this is something that, 2 things about this. One, we really are, words of Star Trek, giving all she's got, Captain. And, with the focus on still getting the mutuals closed on the 15th. But given the holidays, given illnesses, given just the NetSuite implementation and the hiccup we had in ACH payments, there is no way we're gonna be able to produce accurate financials. And I would say, so there isn't just a rush for just the sake of having preliminary financials. I also would say this is not necessarily a bad change going forward in terms of maybe our cadence and our calendar, because getting year end is not the same as a month. We have accruals we need to look at. So, having year end financials in February make more sense, I think, from an actual fiscal calendar. And, we certainly could bring November financials into the January meeting, depending on the board schedule. But I think it's very prudent for us to have better financials and look at the year end numbers, what the accruals and everything that's more accurate. So hopefully you all saw that memo I wrote, but there was just no way to rush something. We still have an open position up there, an account I'm trying to fill. So for that reason, we kind of punted till next month on the financials, and hopefully everyone can kind of see the logic in that and is okay with that, so.
Sure, I can support that. I think it makes sense to review the November one in our January meeting, since we never got to really discuss that.
Yeah, because of the way the board calendar, and then of course, from the way that then fell, we were right in the middle of Gen Arc, so some of the things, because we didn't necessarily just close November normally, because we were, so some of that process historically with my team has always been to do both of them kind of simultaneously. And what I would do this upcoming year, to your point, is go ahead and close November as normal in December. Even if we didn't have a board meeting, we certainly could copy the finance committee on those financials, so they would have them, even if we didn't meet officially, and then we could bring up questions in the January meeting.
and as Harry's brought up in the past, to start maybe only doing deep dive in the financials on a quarterly basis, and then the other interim months, maybe deep dive into some other issues.
Yeah.
So that would be a good point to maybe separate those other issues on that.
Yeah,
Go
I
from there.
I certainly think when it comes to like budget variances, right? If there's a large threshold, a quarterly deep dive on the context behind those variances makes a lot of sense, right? Versus just monthly.
Yeah, makes more sense.
Yeah.
As I told you, at the Waterford, you guys don't do the financials for us, but we have traditionally avoided the close until February.
Yeah.
Many years.
Okay, we're gonna skip Ann for now, the maintenance capital projects, machinery. We're gonna go to the MTF activity.
You want to start with this one or just the regular?
Whichever one you wanna start.
So we're looking for that one missing sale that would have
Where is it? Why didn't it happen?
maybe just,
Yeah, I think if we look at, I think also it's very important to look at obviously the dollars, not just the units, in terms of which ones are generating fees, and we've talked about that. So if you look at, the ones that actually generated fees, last year we were at we were at 5,375, and this year we came in at 5,186, right? So that delta of $180,000 or whatever, I think is the key thing we look at when we want to start talking about how do we maybe raise this transfer fee and what that looks like, and how do we not just stay flat, but how do we grow even in the sales conditions. So we've all talked a lot about, what the numbers are and where we ended the year, and certainly we did end the year down, as Jeff indicated it, 399. So I think that is something that obviously as we take that next step and do that deeper dive next month, that's something we need to discuss.
And Tom, I'm assuming this is still on your radar someplace to give us a breakdown of the
100%.
sales that do not qualify for a transfer fee, to determine if there's anything we can do to make them qualify. However it is, or to look and see what it is on there. The other thing I wanted to bring up is in our budget this year, we're using 375. So we've gone from 430, is that what that is? I'm at 430 to 399 to 375. Is everyone, so we lost 31 last year, and we're saying we're gonna lose another 25 this year. Is that everyone still okay with that?
as we get into the capital discussion and consideration of recommendations under the capital, one of the points that we'd like to have you consider is that number still.
So Adrian, what do you think? Because you've done a deep
Yeah.
dive on this.
375.
Is that a reasonable assumption?
Well, if you go to the last one, the last slide there, you'll see the 10-year trend or the 13-year trend. And, I just fitted a linear regression on that curve. And we're losing 2.5 a year. Is that right? Something like that. 10 fewer MTFs a year, 2.5%. And that trend has gone on for quite a long time. I mean, so it's not the 100% insurance thing. It's not the COVID. It's been going on for a long time. And so I think what it's saying something about people living longer, people maybe, I see this happening a lot. I see people handing over, the parents have a house here, they die, the children take it over. So there's no transfer fee. So there's just secular things that are happening that are perhaps causing this somewhat of a decline. And so it's not huge, it's 2.5% a year. So it's not going to change everything by any means, but it is happening. And 2.5% a year, if we could offset it by increasing the MTF by $375. So
The decrease the last 2 years have been significantly more than two. We've gone from 499 to 430 to 399.
yeah,
So we've lost 20% we've lost 20% in 2 years.
yeah, although the 4.9 and the 515 were relatively high. So yeah, so you can't projecting time series is not a particularly useful thing to do.
So going back to what Dan was talking about, how to calibrate that fee for different kinds of persons who might not be captured by our fee. So the gap between, so I know the revenue is increasing. If you hold the number of units sold constant, the revenue is increasing because of MTF fees going up.
Yeah.
But is the gap between if you control for that, if you control for the rise in the MTF fee, and you look at the number of units sold and the revenue you get from it, is the gap between the number of units sold and the revenue declining? Because that would suggest something going on under the numbers, which might be in terms of different kinds of ways to evade the MTF fee.
I don't think people are really evading it, I just think it's, we're just not seeing the sales in the way that we've seen them.
Well, Harry, in 2023, there were 558 total sales, of which 428 resulted in fees. Last year, there were 496 and 391 resulted in fees.
So the percentage is roughly the same?
78.8 versus 70, it went up 2 points.
Okay.
There's a slide, the 681, Todd, will you throw that up first?
Yeah.
That one there, you can see the percentage. You can make it bigger.
I know we want to be conservative to a point, but do we really have to scale down 25% on home sale? Or fee collected at least?
Okay, I'm sorry, what's your comment?
I'm thinking is that we're suggesting 375, right, for 2025, that's almost 25%.
From 400 to, from
Yeah,
400 to
that's true, but
375, it's less than 10%, it's
That's true.
9%,
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
9%.
But do we still have to go down that much? I'm worried about some of the planning thing that we,
Well, as Jeff said, we're gonna see that in the other thing, so be
Yeah.
thinking about it, we can talk about that. And whether that's too much, if we go to somewhere in the middle, whatever you wanna do.
Yeah.
So I also think though, if you look at just what the fee is, it's not regardless of sales, it's not a bad thing to look at taking that fee up. For new residents coming in, it's not, going from 13 to 14 or even 15 for new residents coming in, given the surplus we want to have on the CapEx side and have that cushion. It's not a bad thing to take up in conjunction with, oh yeah, there might be some risk on sales volume, but let's go ahead and take the fee up because it's not necessarily unexpected to see that fee go up at some point over time.
I think, maybe the 15,000 threshold, but at some point, it's gonna get, you can't keep raising it
Yeah.
forever, at some point, but where's the stop, where's the point?
We really should have that fee tied to what our long-term program needs are to accomplish what it is. And some of that is still being defined right now. Some of that's still being defined right now in terms of the medical center, MOD, we haven't defined that project scope yet. So we want to make sure when we're thinking about where to place that MTF, it's not just this feels right, it's tied to a metric that we can defend with the community. So one of the things we hope to do in February is bring to you a more robust discussion about some of those long-term vision projects, what the scope of those may be, what the involvement of the medical center may be, what our lending capacity with mechanics and what our existing loans may look like. So there's quite a few different variables that we want to bring to you as part of your discussion of where to peg that MTF. And that may also influence a little bit more of what the number of units sold would be.
So that's a good point, Jeff, thank you. I think looking at the structural kind of need over the long run. But the other part we haven't discussed that much.
Here, 1 second, we have a question online we want to get to.
Okay, Dwight, go ahead.
Good morning. So when you're talking about the reduction in MTF collections, one of the things that I think needs to be integrated into this analysis is leasing activity. And I don't know where the facility usage fee ended up for the year, but it's probably equivalent to 10 or 12 MTFs. And so that's the other phenomenon that we've seen is an increase in leasing activity. So my question would be, can we incorporate leasing activity into this discussion?
So I think the number Todd and Jeff mentioned is $140,000 in the FUF fee, facilities usage fee. So that would be rough at 14,000 would be 10 units. Yeah.
And we are seeing more rental.
And we just raised that fee also.
Yeah, I mean, the Third Mutual, we had to change our policies because of the government's ruling that says you have to be able to rent. And so we can expect to see more rentals, which will mean less MTFs, but more FUPs if we implement it correctly.
But the problem is that's just taken out of the right pocket and putting in the left pocket, because that's taken off. We're now gonna have to cover the 140, 150,000 in the coupon and use it here. So it's right pocket, left pocket. Which one do you want?
There is only one pocket.
Good answer. So, that's right, we'll bring it up, we'll talk about it. It's on the agenda later.
So when we bring up the deep dive into the how to change the MTF fee, we're always talking about how to increase it and what the percentage should be and the assumption. But there can be structural changes which might require a change in the trust agreement in terms of equity and fairness.
Well, that's why we need to get the breakdown of the 100 and so our units that didn't qualify for the fee, and why they don't qualify.
Right, but also in terms of other structural issues like how many persons are staying in the unit or it could be prorated on the pricing. Because it's much more regressive on the small condos.
That's basically not allowed in the trust
It
agreement.
can't be changed.
It can be, you'd have to amend the trust agreement, which would be
Doesn't happen.
almost impossible.
Doesn't happen.
Almost impossible. It's never, not impossible, but almost. Very close.
And I think also our membership fee should correlate with what the community can offer. If we have some major improvement, like we're building this pickleball court now, so it should automatically raise the profile and the value of what the community is offering to the buyer. And during that time or that year, it's not out of the question that we bump it up significantly than the other year. It doesn't to be increased at the same rate every year, right? I think you have to measure what we're offering.
And if, what we read in the paper, right, once we build it, all the pickleball players will come, so sales will jump all over the place.
You just have to have people selling them.
Okay, so I guess we'll table this until we go through some of the planning stuff on this. Unless someone has anything else to say? No, okay. Next is NetSuite.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. You guys having fun yet?
So much fun. So let's just start out with the good news, and the reality is we actually went live. So we are in the production environment, and I think hopefully everyone can kind of get their arms around the fact that that is a big step forward. You know, you can sit on the outside and look all you want, but until you actually get in and start using it, we're really not going to be able to really move forward and finalize this implementation over the next month. So, you know, we felt it very important back in the days when we first moved this go live date. Obviously, it was essential we moved it. There was no way we were going to hit a date earlier. This date was super important to keep because of the change of the fiscal year and all the cutover. It just made a lot of sense. It would be extremely more complex if we were trying to do a split fiscal year. That said, you know, the scope of this implementation is, you know, you can't really overstate how broad it is and how much goes into it. And there's going to be some hiccups and some rocky roads as we just move through. And we really are going to be fine tuning the NetSuite processes, both from workflow and also what the initial setup was to how it works in reality. Obviously, we did have a hiccup this month with the ACH payments, which was unforeseen. It actually related to two different issues. One, you know, if you think about how the most complex part of our organizational much is actually how the member records and everything is structured in a database, right? Because you can have an entity that has an owner. That owner might necessarily be the beneficiary of the trust that's running that. That trust could own multiple properties throughout the community, right? That owner may live in one, but rent out two or three and not live in them. So that area of complexity, when we actually went to do the ACH and we had really where the problem came in for the kind of wrecked it for the mini, was those individuals that had multiple or entities that had multiple residences across multiple mutuals and how that data was being pulled in. So we obviously couldn't test pulling people's money before we actually pulled their money. So we had to go back and kind of reconfigure this setup a little bit on those database fields. And then the other thing that we did with Third, because of all the projects and the complexity of Third, in the past, we would take that money in and then allocate it across a project. We didn't have a one-to-one relationship. So if there was an ACH or something that failed, we couldn't immediately track that back to a one-to-one relationship for which project. So we changed that so it is a one-to-one relationship between that bank account and that individual project. And so if it goes the other direction, we can track it and have an audit trail. So a couple things we have, as far as I know, the rest of them were all, the third was run yesterday, so it should have all been corrected. There's no late fees and the fix will take place when we're back on normal in February. Obviously, though, we did have to focus on all our energies on getting those ACHs, as you can imagine, and also happens at the same time we're trying to collect for the insurance payment premiums. And so, that ACH draw was close to $2 million. So, to look at mutuals having to borrow from the reserve funds, a few of them that need to do that for the insurance coupon, it was important to get that $2 million in. So it all kind of happened at once. A little bit of a perfect storm there. But we did make it through, and it's going forward now as we truly turn on the other aspects of NetSuite, including as we move forward here with cloud cameras, as we turn on resales, we're turning on a new custom solution on property tax. We'll be finalizing the implementation and turning on the work order service desk. So all those things as they're coming online over this Q1, are hopefully we're going to go smooth, but there are probably going to be some hiccups here and there as well. So, I think the reality of that. One of the things we're going to do, talking with Jeff and also Ann Peterson, is we're going to start a network or NetSuite news link on the website. So that'll also correlate to a NetSuite news column in the first week of every month as we kind of gone through the month. So we're trying to have a better job communicating to the community as a whole, like where we are in the NetSuite implementation for everyone, and be able to kind of highlight, I call it the 3 ups and 3 downs, what's really working, that hopefully is, the good news for people, but also kind of give them insight into some of the challenges we're having, right? And certainly we didn't see the ACH one. We try to get out in front of that communication with the presidents in a paper article, but it's just, we're behind the game. So hopefully now with a little more upfront communication, we can do a better job just communicating actually throughout the year about just all our progress. Because as we move into phase 2 and we look at a solutions for Ann on the room reservation piece, and we're adding that software, we look at a rossmore.com as we turn on our planning and financial tool, which will be absolutely critical and exciting for the budgeting and the business planning aspects and the forecasting aspects on June. All that is really good news. And so we're going to try to start communicating, just thinking about throughout this year, what's going on with the implementation of NetSuite and how we're going to get from where we've been to what it looks like in 12 months, which is a very different place. So it's going really well. The other part in the very bottom of the screen is the Celigo piece, which can't be really overstated. That is our what we call our middleware partner that connects all these things, right? And so if you think about 4UP, you think about Dwelling Live in the security standpoint is probably the only one that actually has speaking of that database, a one-to-one relationship with a person coming through the gate, because they have to have an RFD tag. So all those things have to speak together and all come into a single instant, right? And so that's really been our biggest challenge, is creating that single instant. So even though when we eventually turn on some of these other connectivities and eventually get to a one solution for, the whole community, all that information is coming into that one instant within NetSuite. Versus right now it's been in multiple different databases and we do it. So I'm actually really encouraged. Obviously we're going to have some hiccups, but I think that we're moving forward, and I have incredible, I think you and I and the whole organization have an incredible team that are putting their best foot forward, and there's also higher staff that's learning the product for the first time too, right? And so that's not, it's not a small thing either. And so that's kind of what I have to say this morning on it. I mean, it's going, and we're going to keep you guys updated. And like I said, we're going to do a better job of communicating to the community as a whole with NetSuite news. So,
Any questions? Okay, Ann, it's perfect timing.
Oh, very cool. Okay.
Maybe not for you, but for us, it's good timing. We're ready to talk about the capital projects budget.
All right. So I'm just wondering, Todd, would you happen to be driving? Would you be able to pick that up? It might be easier than me trying to log on quicker.
Which one I have?
Why don't we start with the capital, the ones that list the projects and the total? And so while it's the one that looks, it would be
There you go.
There we go.
780, yeah, there you go.
All right.
Okay, so what this reflects is updates to proposed projects for 2025 up to the last planning committee meeting that we had. And so, in trying to anticipate that we wanted to really, set priorities and maybe look at some of the bigger ticket, like line items like pavement program, which typically has been coming in below budget, to kind of streamline this a little bit. And so this is going to the board as the proposed capital projects budget for the first reading on Thursday. All the numbers in here on this particular document are true based on current estimates for these projects. And so you can see that the total package is $7,233,474. And you'll see projects that are listed that have nothing assigned to it in 2025. It's because those are the things that the planning committee is deciding to defer and whatnot, again, to try to smooth out some of the spending. Now, if you look at 7A1, which is the cash flow, which is the other document, the first document you had, Tom?
Yep.
Thank you. What I want you to draw attention to you is, as we're doing the year-end close, which we won't have until February, the 2024 year-end projected are just those are projections. So this isn't yet been finalized with the finance numbers. They're estimates based on what we know the spending has been on the projects year to date. Some of those things will change a little bit. The other thing that we didn't have the updated numbers on are the actual transfer fee. So that's an estimate. It's because it's never a true number of homes. I think everybody knows that some of them are financed. I'm so sorry.
It's just
PG&E.
Exactly. It's just an excellent.
But it gives you an idea of where we're projecting in 2025 with the projects proposed and where our bottom line should end up with the transfer fee as it is. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
So before you jump into the questions, some of the things we're looking for from the committee today, as you just discussed in the MTF, if you look at this spreadsheet here, we are continuing based on 400 unit transactions. You had previously discussed 375. Kind of looking at that trend, that is certainly a discussion point. This continues along the FTE being the 500 per year. This continues along the premise of maintaining a balance of at least $2 million. This program accomplishes that, but it should be noted that we do not have 26 and beyond fully populated. We definitely don't include the MOD replacement project in 27, 28 when that is projected. That is a big number out there. There's still quite a few moving parts, but some of the things we think would be valuable for this committee to consider, whether it's this month or as we talk more about the overall program in February, is what is that actual number of units? Do you concur that we still want to have the goal of maintaining at least a $2 million cash balance and continue to grow the reserve from 3.75 to 4 million in 2026 and then maintain the 4 million moving forward? Or is there any of those variables that you would recommend otherwise?
Okay, I'll start with question. I'm sure this has been discussed before. What's the medical center deposit reserve and why is it coming off of our cash?
So what that is when the last escrow fell through with the buyer, Golden Rain Foundation, per contract, since they were the ones that pulled out of that sale or defaulted, retained, I believe it was 1.4 million from that process. The board has set that aside in a reserve as what is being used to really fund any study, any initial project related to the medical center in particular. So that's why we've been tracking any costs associated with the medical center and pulling it out of that reserve, maintaining that reserve.
So the 176 you backed out is the difference between the 106 on the 883, got it. But that's basically just a board designation that
Correct.
it really is available cash.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question, Jen. How much maintenance cost and tax that we have to pay for the center?
I think our estimate is that it's right now about 50,000, 45, 50,000 a year to maintain from.
And tax too? Not included in there. The tax included in the 50,000?
Todd's taking a quick look here.
I have that, but I just don't know if it's quickly on it.
Okay.
Let me look.
That's okay. You don't have to answer that right now.
That's
But you need to know
question.
how much we costing us every year, right?
Adrian, did you ever always look that up?
Yeah, so problem looking at this from a long-term perspective is the fact that we don't have the medical center MOD replacement aspect into it yet. And that makes it very difficult for me to really sort of say, are we on the right track or not? And so I'm really glad to hear that you expect to have something by next month that we could sort of say, okay, we probably can do something for, pick a number, right? Yeah, 8 million, 10 million, whatever it might be. And here's the way we could finance it. And once we have an understanding of that, then I think we can make a reasonable decision about what we're trying to spend this year. But prior to having that, it's just so much up in the air.
But I don't think there's any way we're gonna be able to afford the $10 million renovation without getting a significant portion of the loan.
Yes, exactly, yeah, so
There's
I
no-
mean.
there's- So it's gonna have a minimal impact to this, except for the annual payments and whatever the down payment is, which could be significant.
Yeah, that's right. So I mean, that's gonna lock in a capital expense for many years if we get a loan, so just as we've had previously.
Yes.
It's not necessarily a bad thing. We just need to understand what it looks like.
And we need to know what that capacity is with or without the medical center. Is a big question mark right now.
As I look at that area up there, I mean, that Bank of America building has been on the market for how long now?
Yeah.
Since I moved in here, I think it's years ago. And so, I mean, it's clear that those kind of buildings aren't really
Office
very
buildings
useful.
are not,
Well,
Not anymore.
that whole shopping center is up for sale, my understanding is.
Yeah,
So-
yeah.
So they're trying to sell the whole shopping center, but not a whole lot of sales. I don't think the 400 sales are reasonable. I think to expect it to be flat is unrealistic. But maybe 375 is too much. And maybe, if we go down to 380 or 385 and we pick up the facilities usage fee, gets us right back to 400, because that's 15 units, so if we do that. But do we just get to pick which pocket the facilities usage fee comes out of?
it's really at the discretion of the recommendation from finance and decision of the board. There is not a anywhere in the trust or bylaws that would dictate where that needs to go. I mean, I think you can make a solid argument either way.
But it is an arbitrary decision on our part which pocket we take it out of.
Well, on a logical basis, I think it's a replacement for having the benefit of living in Rossmore without having paid the transfer fee. So I would be for moving it.
And on top of that, it's calculated based upon the transfer fee,
Yeah, and so it's really hard to justify and explain.
much to Ted's.
Yes? Thank you.
One thing we will do is we discussed last month, we are gonna start reporting that. So on the financials, we'll include the amount every month, so we can see the.
It is.
We're gonna put it on highlighted, so we can
Okay.
see it every month as it, as we make the decision where to pull it from, at least want to have visibility to what it is every month.
Okay.
So what would the arguments against putting it against capital be?
That people are using the facilities, so therefore, they need to be maintained, therefore, they should go against the coupon to offset some of the costs of the facilities, the maintenance of the gym and the wear and tear and all that stuff for the facilities. That'd be the biggest argument in my mind.
So the difference with that too is with the facility usage fee and the rentals under that program is the owner still retains rights to use the facilities. So you're basically expanding use or potential use of facilities. So instead of the coupon offsetting that, the facility usage fee is technically offsetting the additional use of program services, amenities, and so forth. The alternative argument where it would be going to the trust is that the wear and tear is additional. So I mean, you can really argue both sides.
But we don't really know, that's just a hypothesis that somebody might be using it, like lacking data. It seems sort of a weaker argument to me about usage on the facility. Somebody walks in the gym and wears the floor out by one atom or something.
But another way of looking at it is if you have this as a rental property, okay, the amenities are an attractive aspect of why you could rent a property here. I mean, if I were just to take that landlord type of a view. And so having better amenities would mean actually I could increase the rent I could charge somebody. So that sort of argues for it being a fee that goes towards building those amenities so that the rental rates can go up.
And we're seeing an increase in the number of rentals
Yeah.
as well. So, and we're also seeing a nationwide decline in sales this year, nationwide of home sales. So it seems to me that the money is more applicable toward to the capital budget than the operating.
So you've kind of launched into your next discussion items, but we didn't complete.
It impacts the 400 units, Jeff,
That's
so
right.
I think that's why we have to discuss it all simultaneously,
I agree.
because if we're gonna pick up 15 units of FUF fee, then,
We can
then we
reduce this
reduce this down comfortably, yes.
So on looking at the number of units sold, that's the big thing, picking the number of units sold. Should we not be looking at what our, coming from when I was in business, shouldn't we look at what our needs are to determine what the MTF should be for the number of units sold? So if you think you're gonna do this much business meaning how many units were sold. I don't wanna be in a big talking thing, I'm trying to get into a question. But shouldn't we be looking at, here's what our needs are? Because it seems like all the time I've been on the board, we're always chasing projects. We never have enough money. We're always chasing everything. Shouldn't we say, we need this amount of money for a bit of a buffer zone for an emergency of a big hole in the street that caves in and we have to fix it or something? I guess that comes from trust.
I can walk you through where that's in there.
But
Finish
anyway,
your-
what
yeah.
I'm saying is, let's look at what we need, see our anticipated sales, and then do the math and come out. Like if it was 375 and we needed $7 million worth of stuff to do, it's gonna be 18,006 is the MTF. I'm trying to say it should.
I think that's
I think we're going from the backside coming this way, and I really think we should say, what is our needs? What is our anticipation? That's my question. Should we look at it differently?
I think that's the discussion we're suggesting that the committee have starting in February, when we can provide a little bit more of that detail about what it is the program looks like. But right now, the committee still needs to determine how many sales is
Yeah.
realistic
Part of the
to
equation.
divide that number by.
And then is FUF fee part of that or not? Because that's another 14, 15, whatever the number of units are. So
So if we're going with 375, our membership fee for 2025 will be about 330,000 short of that 5.4 million, right? And if we want to make up for that with our transfer fee, it will be around 14,500. But I'm afraid we can't always get into the same pot to support what we need and want. Now, their needs, their wants, we need to distinguish that, okay? So, I mean, if we upped it for 1,000 instead of 500, or 1,500, actually, it should be, then we solve the problem for next year. But we cannot get into the same piggy bank every year.
But that piggy bank is easier to get into than the other piggy bank, which is the people who live here and who already.
I know.
I'm not saying it's right, I'm not saying it's right, Alice, it's just easier.
We're nailing it.
It's easier to get the money from the people who haven't moved in here yet, because they don't get a say in a lot of things, and the people who are in here who are complaining about the fees and all this and all this other stuff. It's an easy answer, not the right answer sometimes.
But we need to be careful. That piggy bank is going to.
At some point, it's going to explode. Where's that number? I don't know. I don't know. So do we need to make decisions today on units and fees and buff? Or is this just a discussion for next month when I'm gonna be in Mexico and not here? That's kind of the way I'm leaning.
Saw through the
That's
whole
kind of the
thing,
way
didn't
I'm
you,
leaning.
Dan?
So we are hoping to have.
We wouldn't catch that.
Yeah.
We are hoping to have the first reading of the capital budget at the board meeting on Thursday. We will then bring it back through planning, finance, and to the board for a final reading based on final tune-up of numbers once we close everything. And so if there's anything that you see as a committee that's kind of a area of concern or hiccup in doing that, we should know about that. You know, if I'm missing anything on that.
No, I just, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get into
So, yeah,
this room, but
we do
I think we're
need
good,
your
but-
recommendation on proceeding. However, your decision in terms of the number of sales, the future of the MTF rate can all wait until next month and beyond.
Yeah,
The
but
reality is that we're talking about $300,000 here. Whether it's 375 or 400, it raise it. There's a $300,000 plus or minus number there.
Right.
And in the size of that budget, that's not a very big variance.
Correct.
And so I feel like we should maybe see what it looks like if you take the upper level of that and if you take the lower level of that and over several years and see what difference that really makes to it. And does that change the decision we would make? If it's only $300,000 this year, it's not going to change any decisions.
So in order to do that, at next month's meeting, you need to bring in the spreadsheet that you can make changes. So we can come in and take the 400, change it to 375, 385, so so they can see what the impact is, change the fee from 13.5 to 14.5 to 15, put a spot for the FUF fees to go in there, so that they can see the impact once we have all the, as Ted would say, all the expenses, to know which numbers do we need to get in there to get the numbers where we want it to be. And the only way we can do that is with an interactive spreadsheet. And then.
Yeah,
then
I will. The one thing I do want to say, the forward years, the placeholders that are in there are generally what we spend on the existing and about what we've been spending on discretionary, right? Where it tips is if it's like, you know, when we have some of the big and I think Jeff is saying it's why you don't see anything about MOD or like true capital for the food service on there. Like those are things that almost have to have a different type of a conversation methodology. So I think we just need to talk about, and I will say one of the things that would be really helpful moving forward, we need to use this tool for forecasting, for projecting. And we're kind of doing this mashup, and with capital, you have to be fluid and dynamic and responsive. So I think somebody like, Ted was talking about like having that baseline in there. So we're really trying to keep that in there.
Yeah, and I think you need to build in some type of reserve. You gotta have, that's why the 2 million, I guess.
That's why the 2 million is there.
In case, as Jeff was saying, there's a big hole in the
Yes.
street.
And that's
You don't
part of
wanna
it.
use the 2 million for that, but you can't build a reserve so high that you may have to go into it for a very unusual item.
We always
Don't
have
want to.
items that come up, but
Yeah, but
slide.
hopefully it's only 150,000, not 2 million, and you can absorb $150,000.
And we have the 3.75 million reserve as well.
And I know we don't have to make a decision on this today, but just to state my general inclination is to move it to 385 and include the 140,000 FUF fee. in
What I was gonna
capital.
do is let's actually take a straw poll to say, just so we got 3 items. Include FUF fee, number of units, and the fee. So might as well give us the third one. Nancy, what do you think the fee should be? The 13.5, are you happy with 13.5, or you wanna go
Well,
up?
13.5 gets us to 5,337,500, so that's almost that 544 number. I could do a goal seek to get it to exactly.
So I just,
Yeah, I'm okay with the 13.5 for now, but I'd
I'd
have
rather
to.
go to 14.
I'd rather go to 15.
Right off the top.
I'm with Dan.
I'd rather go to, I'd go to 15.
I'd go to 15.
I'd go to 385 and include the FUF fee would be my 3 points.
And the FUF
Okay,
fee
that
you're
gets us to-
referring to starting in
Starting
26.
January 1st. Can I
That
do,
gets us to
can I
5.
do a 25? Can I do 25?
If we put it into 2025, then we're lowering the projections for the operating budget.
Okay, so that'd be effective January 26th then. Okay,
I agree.
okay.
Well, if we put it at the 15, according to my calculations, that gets us to 5.9, including the FUF fee.
But there will be no, FUF fee will not be included till 2026.
Got it, I know. So minus that.
So 375 times 15,000.
But don't we have to don't we have to
Right.
delay the implementation for at least 6 months for the real estate?
Yeah, so we
Yes.
just went up, but again, before you make a recommendation on final amount and stuff, I would suggest we have the conversation next month about what that amount should be tied to.
But we can have an approach, like for example, I support what Dan was saying. If we're going to make a significant increase, let's go for the amount that we don't have to come back every year for a significant increase. So I support 15,000. However, we still need to keep the annual incremental at a reasonable rate. Stay at 500 or change that too, I don't know. I don't like to see we increase significantly every year, right? But we should have a gradual increase, still building.
Were you okay with the 2.5% proposed? That was one solution.
Yeah,
mean,
well, that's about 500.
I just want to just go back to what Ted said. I mean, I think we really need to look at this as the dollars required. So I mean, if you go back historically and say, how much funds did we generate? Did we generate enough? Well, if we want 6 million in reserves, we're 250,000 short, right? So it doesn't mean last year's number was a good number. We might need actually more funds. And if $1,000 is what's keeping someone from moving in here,
They shouldn't be
they
moving
probably
in.
shouldn't be moving in here. I don't want to be
Right.
cynical.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Because this is a fee that's charged to someone new coming in. We're not
Right.
trying to jab someone for a coupon increase. So I think it needs to be really connected to how do we get ahead of what we actually want to do from a project standpoint and make sure there's enough in the till to give us that cushion and window. Because the FUF fee is great, but it's a rounding error when you look at $8 million or $9
Yeah.
million or $10 million.
Yeah, and it's also not gonna be effective to 1/1/26, and the increase from 13.5 to 15 won't go in effect until, let's say, July 1st anyway.
Exactly.
So
Only
it's half the
half a
year,
year.
half the year.
And I actually learned something yesterday. I had dinner with a friend of mine who just bought a trilogy out in Brentwood, which is similar arrangement to this. Their GRF equivalent fee is $400 a month. Ours is what, two after the,
$360.
well, but there's the internet cost, so.
Oh, yeah.
So ours is like about 300, so in other words, our
We're competitive.
monthly fee is actually substantially lower, and we have golf, which they do not. So in fact, we're not what it sort of taught me was, well, actually Rossmore is a fairly decent value.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Still,
But
so
it's,
that's
but it's
not-
the mutual portion
Oh,
that's the killer because of the age of the buildings and
Oh,
all
yeah,
those
that's-
things.
Yeah, that's a
Where
different.
the trilogy, they're
different
much, because I know someone who's thinking about
Yeah.
moving there too.
Yeah,
And he says
Yeah.
the coupon is much less, mainly because of the units are much newer.
well,
The
and
houses.
they're individual houses.
The houses.
But
houses.
that's
have- and
only
you have to pay your all
responsibility.
yourself.
Exactly.
So-
You have 4 minutes?
You know what?
4 minutes.
Until 10 o'clock.
Oh,
and that's
4
when
minutes,
the-
okay. Anything
Are we
else?
making a recommendation?
No, this is just a straw vote to say for you guys to decide next time. Harry, real quick.
So I think the 15 makes sense, as long as in the future, like Alice is saying, we always bumping it up as the easiest solution.
Right.
You know, and as far as the overall needs is concerned, which Ted is talking about, that depends upon what we do with the medical center, which is a big question mark, you know. Maybe part of it could be generating revenue. So I think we have to be conservative in our assumptions, something like 375, because then the annual increase after that can be tied to the structural decline, which Adrian mentioned. So that completely offsets that, no?
Anyone else before we table this till next month? You guys all have fun talking about it? I'll be on an airplane, so I won't even be able to zoom in.
You come up with all kinds of excuses.
Anything else? If not, okay, we're adjourned.
Got it.
3 minutes to spare.
All right.